Hey everyone, I'm working to hit 1,000 subscribers, and I need your help to get there. If you enjoy this content, please hit that subscribe button right now.
What's up, everyone? Look, I'm not going to waste your time here. Jeff Passan just dropped something that should end all the panic right now. And if you don't know who Jeff Passan is, he's literally the most respected voice in baseball. I have notifications turned on for this guy because when he speaks, he's talked to the right people. He knows what's happening. So when Passan goes on Threads and says he absolutely expects the Mets to get a big free agent, make a big trade, or both, that should tell you everything you need to know. And I already know what some of you are thinking. You're going to say I'm just defending the front office, that I'm making excuses. But here's the reality. I'm not getting paid by SNY. I don't work for the Post anymore. I don't need access to anyone. I can tell you exactly what I think without worrying about burning bridges, because I don't need those relationships. And what I think is that people need to relax and understand how baseball actually works. The offseason moves slow. Scott Boras makes it move even slower. That's just how it is. You want immediate gratification, I get it, but that's not reality. Everyone's freaking out like the Mets are just going to roll into spring training with a roster full of minor leaguers and washed-up veterans. That's not happening. They're getting an outfielder. They're getting a starting pitcher. These aren't maybes. These are necessities, and the front office knows it. Whether you believe Jorge Polanco can be the everyday first baseman or not, they're addressing the roster. But you might have to wait past December to see it happen. The problem is people see 1 month go by without a massive signing, and they lose their minds. They start comparing this to the Wilpon era. And let me be clear about something. The Wilpons gave us 2 World Series appearances in 60 years. 60. Steve Cohen said he wanted to win in his first 5 years, and because that hasn't happened yet, everyone's acting like the sky is falling. But winning a World Series is incredibly difficult. What you should want is sustained success, and that's exactly what they're building with the farm system that ESPN literally ranked #1 in baseball. Let's talk about what actually happened this offseason. The Mets moved on from their core, and I know that's painful for some of you. You loved Pete Alonso. You loved Brandon Nimmo. Some of you even defended Jeff McNeil. But here's what you need to understand. This core won nothing. I don't care about individual statistics. I care about winning. And those guys, despite putting up numbers, didn't translate to postseason success. They weren't beloved in that clubhouse either, and I know people don't want to hear that. This isn't about race or politics or any of that garbage. It's about a losing culture that needed to change. Francisco Lindor is a future Hall of Famer, and he's locked up. Juan Soto is a future Hall of Famer, and he's locked up. They weren't part of the 2019 core that kept failing year after year. Lindor got here in 2021, which means he's got 2 fewer losing seasons attached to him than McNeil, Nimmo, or Alonso. Whether you like Lindor's politics or whatever people complain about, he's a generational player. That's what matters. Brandon Nimmo was a good player with a nice smile. That's it. McNeil won a batting title 4 years ago and has been declining ever since. His elbow is shot. Pete Alonso was solid, but the organization believed he'd age poorly and turn into a designated hitter, and they're not giving $31 million a year to a DH. That's just smart business. So yes, I believe they'll make moves because the best reporter in baseball is telling you they will. You just need some patience. Which brings me to Framber Valdez. The Mets checked in on him back in November. He's a guy who can eat innings and has postseason experience. That matters. I know people hate that one incident where he crossed up his catcher. Not great, I agree. But look at his entire body of work. It's really good. The question is whether they can get him on a short-term deal. Can they land him for 3 years at $100 million? Maybe 3 for $110? The Mets are comfortable with high annual value. They just gave Polanco $20 million. They don't want to be locked into 5 or 6 year deals with aging pitchers. And honestly, Valdez's market probably isn't playing out the way he expected. Maybe it's the cross-up incident. Maybe it's concern about the potential lockout next season. Either way, if I'm Valdez, I'm taking 3 years at $120 if it's offered. The Mets could structure it with deferrals and signing bonuses to manage the cap hit in year 1. That gives them flexibility to add other pieces like an outfielder or depth at first base. People keep asking me if I'd rather trade for someone like Freddie Peralta, and my answer is no. I'd rather sign Valdez as a free agent for 3 years than gut the farm system for 1 year of Peralta. That makes way more sense from a business and team building perspective. And yes, the Mets absolutely need starting pitching. I've never denied that. but it wasn't the only problem last season. Anyone who watched every game knows that. The offense went ice cold at the worst times. They were something like 0-70 when trailing going into the ninth inning. That's a lack of fight. That's a lack of heart. Remember that Cleveland game, the Nationals games, where they had runners on second and third with less than 2 outs and couldn't get a sacrifice fly? How many times did they load the bases in the 8th or ninth and fail to score? I don't care that they were 8th in hitting. Their situational offense was terrible when it mattered. So, yes, starting pitching was the number one issue. But if you think it was the only issue, you're not paying attention. This was a collective failure across the board. And if you want to go back and nitpick every season, you'll see it wasn't just pitching that failed in 2019, 2020, 2021, 2023, or the end of 2022. Now, let's talk about a name that might not excite you, but actually makes sense. Miguel Andujar. If the plan is to go with Polanco at first base, I wouldn't mind signing Andujar to a 1-year deal. He just had the best batting average of his career. And yes, I know average isn't everything, but what stands out is his contact rate. This guy doesn't strike out. He puts the ball in play. Over 94 games, he hit .318 with a .352 on base percentage. Just 49 strikeouts. That's ridiculous. In his 34 games with the Reds after they traded for him, he hit .359 with a .400 on base percentage. He was clutch in big moments down the stretch. Remember, this is the same guy who burst onto the scene with the Yankees in 2018 with 27 homers and 92 RBIs. He dealt with injuries and never really replicated that success until now. Over the last 2 years, especially 2025, he's become a solid part-time player. What I like is his flexibility. He's played left field, right field, a little first base, third base. He doesn't play elite defense anywhere, but he can fill in at multiple spots. Some days you play him in left, some days at DH, some days at third. If he's platooning with Brett Beatty, that's actually a strong 1-2 punch. Andujar against lefties and Beatty against righties. That works. On a 1-year deal, Andujar makes a ton of sense as a super utility guy. I know it's not the flashy signing everyone wants. They still need a big-time outfielder and maybe another first baseman. But as depth, if Andujar is the 2026 version of Starling Marte, I'm completely fine with that. And just like Marte and Juan Soto, Andujar is Dominican. So there's that clubhouse connection too. He's only 30 years old, turning 31 in March. He hits better than Marte at this stage of his career. He won't steal bases, but he'll contribute with the bat. That's an upgrade. Listen, I get the frustration. I understand people want big moves right now. But the Mets are building something sustainable. They have the number one farm system in baseball. They have 2 generational talents locked up long-term in Lindor and Soto. They moved on from a core that couldn't get it done. And according to the most trusted reporter in the game, they're not done making moves, whether it's Valdez or another pitcher, whether it's Bellinger or Luis Robert in the outfield. Changes are coming. You just need to trust the process and have some patience. The offseason isn't over in late December. It's just getting started. And when the Mets make their moves, people are going to look back at all this panic and realize it was for nothing. The front office knows what they're doing. Let them work.